Well, welcome back everyone. Today's initial chore will be to start changing out these wax capacitors. And I was going to do the electrolytics, but I found out I don't have enough of the right kind of electrolytics. So I just said to heck with it. I'm low on electrolytics. I put in a $50 order to justradios.com. They'll be in here in a few days, and while I'm waiting, I'll just go ahead and start working on these old wax capacitors, especially down this area here. You see we got some that are all black on the ends. Anytime I see a black, that's probably just dirt and grease and grime and all that sort of thing, but I'm not taking any chances. I don't want to turn on this radio with those things in there. Get out as many as you can, and for sure change the electrolytics and get the new ones in before you apply power. And we've got, let me see, we've got one way up in there. I see it way up in there. Oh my goodness, we got it way up in there. We got this one here. We got another one way up in there. Boy, it's gonna be a lot of fun. See that baby sitting up in there? Whoa. Anyway, what I thought I'd do is show you one way of doing it. And you can do it any way you want. Now some people, they say, well, I remove the wire completely from the terminal, completely from the contacts on the tube sockets. I get it all off. I make sure I get it cleaned, and I put brand new capacitors on there. That's great. But I'll tell you what, you're going to run into times where that's not good, because you wind up breaking tube socket pins, you wind up breaking terminal board strips or contacts. It's just not worth it sometimes. So let me show you an alternative here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these cutters. I'm going to cut one end of this. This is the capacitor we're going to change. This is the one I'm going to use as an example, okay? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this end right here, and then I'm going to cut this end right here. And I'm going to leave a pigtail sticking out about that far on each end. And it's possible to get lost. Somebody rings the doorbell right after you snip the capacitor out, and you come back and you say, oh man, where did that capacitor go? I can't remember where it was. Well, let me show you a little tip here. Before you do any cutting at all, go ahead and take a gator wire and hook it up to both sides of the capacitor. Now if I get up, answer the doorbell, use the bathroom, get a cup of coffee, answer the phone or whatever, I come back and I have removed the capacitor, I know exactly where it goes, because those, the clips will tell me. So let's go ahead and take this one out. Now I'm going to clip this thing close to the body of the capacitor, right up next to the body. I want that pigtail to be there. There's one, and the other one here is right up close to here, right up close. Alright, now see, I can get up and walk away, do anything I want, come back, and I'll know exactly where that capacitor was. Now this is a 0.006 rated at it looks like 400 volts, which is okay. And we have our little stub sticking up here, and you can see it. Let me get my little pencil here. You can see that little stub sticking up right there. And you can see the other stub over here sticking up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend them down to where they face each other. Then I'm going to clean them with alcohol, and then I'll show you what we'll do next. Incidentally, this little handy dandy little box was purchased by my youngest grandson, John. Our little karate kid. He bought it for me for Christmas. He said he was tired of seeing all my capacitors laying around in plastic bags. Well, I thought that was pretty sharp of him. He came up with this idea all by himself. This is a little handy dandy carry around. I was able to separate all my caps. Now I'm going to get another one. I'm going to get one for my electrolytics, and I'm going to get another one for the resistors. Great idea. You can just carry it around. It locks up. You don't have to worry about spilling them, dumping them, or anything. Good idea on his part. In order to change capacitors, it's always good to have a good sharp set of small miniature dikes, and a good pair of needle nose, and a longer pair of needle nose, because sometimes you have to reach way down in, way down in to get something out. It's always good to have a long pair of those. And then a pair of flat duckbill pliers that have no teeth. There's no teeth in there. They're just smooth, okay? And then the last thing I have is a little tiny jeweler's screwdriver. You can see it's been used a lot. It's all kind of bent, really. A 1/32 is always best for this. And then, of course, I have my capacitor. And if you don't have a jeweler's screwdriver, You can use like a tack, like one of these tacks where you stick it on the wall or whatever, you know. Something small, about at 1/32 for most capacitors. Now I've taken these long needle nose after I cut the cap out. I took these long needle nose this time, and I kind of bent the lead down a little bit with the long needle nose to where it's facing directly across from the other lead. You know, let's get that on there. It's kind of hard to see through the camera. There we go. Now I've got them both there like that. And then the next thing to do is you take your little alcohol brush with your alcohol and you scrub them up nice and clean. You want nice clean contacts to solder to. Alright, we'll go ahead and scrub them up real good. Get them nice and clean. I like to use 91% rubbing alcohol for this. Get all the crud and crap off of there as you can. You know, soldering new capacitors into a radio is not one of those hurry up and get the job done kind of deals. Don't do that, you know. Again, I stress, this is a hobby. You know, you take your time, you do it right. You don't just, now if you're a repairman and you're on a schedule and there's money involved and things like that and you're in a business for yourself, I understand, you know. I understand where time is money. But if you're just a hobbyist like I am, you know, a hacker, take your time. There's no rush. You know, you get 1 or 2 capacitors done every 30 minutes. So what? You know, it's the fun of it. All right. The next thing we do is we straighten out the leads on our capacitor, straighten them out all the way, and then we kind of center the body of the capacitor between the ends of the 2 stubs, which would be just about right there. Let me see, right about in that area right there. Kind of get your old thumbnail up there to where the end of it is. You got to just kind of eyeball it, okay? It's between the ends of the 2 stubs. See that stub there? And the one where my thumb is. All right. Now we take it out and just kind of bend it a little bit like so. Now the next step is where this comes in. What I'm going to do is lay the capacitor alongside the screwdriver, just like that, the jeweler's screwdriver, and then I'm going to start coiling it around, starting at the bent point where I made that little bend. I'm going to start coiling it around the shaft of the jeweler's screwdriver. Let me get it started and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, you see what I've done? Now I'm going to go ahead and finish that all the way up to the, you know, pretty far up to the tip. Now you can make these coils any length you want. You can just do 1 or 2 coils. You can go ahead and use the entire lead to coil it up till it's all gone, or you can do them 4 or 5, whatever you think you need. After a while, you'll come up with your own number of coils if you decide to use this, which is called the coil method. How about that, huh? Here I've gone ahead and used the lead completely up until the coil is completed, and that's where the duck bills come in. Because when you're all done, you take the old duck bill here and you just kind of put the lead, put the coil in there and just kind of gently roll it like that, and it rolls down the little, the little stuck-up tab that you wind up with. You can't totally coil it with your finger. After a while, it gets to where it begins to hurt, sticking in your fingers. So I always used the duckbill pliers to give it that last little roll until the coil's completely against the shaft of the screwdriver. Then I kind of take the duckbill pliers and I just kind of squeeze it together, because sometimes they're separated. Just kind of squeeze it a little bit, and I roll it around and squeeze it again until I got a fairly tight coil, and it looks something like that. You don't want them completely tight because you got to get solder down between those. Now let me go ahead and slide it off the shaft, and then I'll stick the shaft in from the other end like this, and then I'll straighten it all out. So we have the body of the capacitor, the part of the lead that's not been coiled, and then the coil sticking straight out from there. Let me get that done. And that's what we have. We've stuck the screwdriver in from the opposite direction. We took it out, stuck it in from the opposite direction, and used it to straighten everything out. Now we'll go ahead and slide it off of there. Alright, that's one end done. Alright, is that cool or not? Let's do it to the other end. I'll have to put it up in here, And I can just for measurement purposes, I'll go ahead and stick this coil on that stub right there, like so. I think you're beginning to get the drift now, aren't you guys? And now for measurement purposes, I'll use my thumbnail again. It's just about centered. If it's off a little bit, it doesn't matter. I'll kind of do it right about there, and I'll give it a little bit of a bend with my thumbnail again. Sometimes you can just use a flat tip, duckbill pliers, and you can set it up in there like that until you get it where you want, and then just kind of give it a little bend with the pliers. It's up to you. You'll come up with your own way of doing it if you decide to do it this way. Well, let me go ahead and coil the other end the same way we did the first one. Well, there it is, coiling both ends. The reason I like this method is because once you get this capacitor on the stubs of the old leads up in the chassis, they hold themselves in place to where, so you can solder them. And later on, if you find if one gets bad, now this also works for resistors. I do this for both resistors and capacitors. And sometimes I've even done it for the ends of wires. Strip the insulation back, make a coil, slide it on the stub, and solder it in place. If I ever have to take them off, or anyone in the future ever has to take them off, all you have to do is heat the coil and it slides right off. You don't have to worry about untwisting and taking things apart. Let me go ahead and slip this up in here like this, give you an idea of what I'm talking about. I'm going to slip it way up there like that. That's the first one on. I can go ahead and take this off of here now and remove this one now. Now we'll go ahead and just kind of slip it on down right over the top of this one here. There we go. And look at that. The capacitor holds itself in place. Is that cool? Kind of straighten it up a little, kind of play with it, until you get it exactly the way you want. Now look at that. Now one other thing. Solder your capacitors in so you can read the numbers. Don't turn them around the other way like this, so the numbers are facing the bottom of the chassis and you can't read them. That is not the way to do it, okay? Bring it on out here where you can see it. Now I'll just go ahead and solder that in place. And there you have it. Now let me put a little alcohol on this brush. Let me see here. We got to put a little alcohol in that brush. And the last thing you do, of course, is clean your solder joints up real nice. Get all that flux or that rosin and crap off of there. Clean them up. Make them look real nice. Okay? Now, while you're doing this, look around at your solder joints that you just soldered to and make sure they look, that one there looks a little insecure, but I guess not. Now go ahead and examine these things. But that little baby is on there. You cannot pull that off. It will pull the wire out of the body of the capacitor before it will remove it from the place you just soldered. Alright, I hope you kind of got something out of that. Now some people don't do this. They say, no, I'm going to remove all the solder, all the wire. I'm going to take everything off. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'll tell you what, when you're dealing with a volume control that dates from 1937, I want to be careful. I don't want to break this phenolic board here that runs around the front of it. I want to be careful with this board right here. You start breaking things, you got all kinds of problems, and you just got to contend with it. The things, these radios are usually broken enough. We don't need to break them anymore. But then again, it's up to the individual. It's your radio. You do it any way you want. This is just one method. And I've used it for years. Works very well. I think we'll go ahead and end this video here. That's what I'm going to be doing over the next day or so. Maybe even 2 days. It all depends. I have some other things I need to get done. But I'm going to change out as many of these wax capacitors as I can. And get everything looking good. By the way, this was a 0.006 microfarad capacitor. I didn't have any 0.006, so I put in a 0.005. Works fine. It'll do great. Okay? They're all rated at 630 volts. Well, that's it, guys. If you have any questions, let me know. Until next time, this is John.